Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the amazing people across the state of Mississippi, right here from the Citizens Bank studio. And listen, I hope you had a great weekend as everyone sort of gets over the Thanksgiving weekend with all the family in town and lots of folks out in the woods hunting and enjoying this time of year with family and in the outdoors world. And we'll be talking more about that on my outdoor show later today. But what a great time of the year. And, you know, as I've said many times on the show, I'm like amazed at where this year went. Where did it go? We blinked and it was over. I had the opportunity last week to visit with Dr. Nicholas Conger, and we talked about the times that we spent together, often, almost weekly, really, during the COVID experience. That COVID seems like it was so long ago, and just to remember how it changed our lives in so many different ways. But it was terrific to catch back up with Dr. Nicholas Conger. He's my friend Nick. And to see the work that he's doing these days. In fact, we're going to have him back on the show to talk more about some of the really important work that they're doing at Memorial as it relates to infectious diseases. And it's kind of stuff that all of us can learn from and maybe get healthier from as a result of the conversation. So all really good stuff. Listen, I'm really excited now because someone I really enjoy touching base with, he's a fellow publisher, someone that I have a lot of respect for. He's a regular on this show. We can go in a bunch of different directions, which we will. But my friend Michael Sunderman, who's the president and publisher of M2 Media, his wife Mary is co-owners with him. You know him probably from South Mississippi Living, but Discover South Mississippi, Jackpot Magazine, Mississippi Gaming News, and they also publish other publications in concert with various chambers and other organizations on the coast. So he's a jack of all trades when it comes to publishing, and he's also a good friend. How you doing, my friend?
Good, Ricky. How are you?
I'm doing good. Well, look, how are you doing? What's the latest in your world?
We're busy. You mentioned some of the publications. We're getting ready to launch, I think in late December, Explore Biloxi. We have a contract with the city of Biloxi to do an annual book for them now. So that's our 12th publication. And then we'll start a magazine for Gulfport in the spring of next year. That'll be our 13th publication. So
yeah, good for you. Listen, I've always enjoyed Fofo and I have deep conversations about, well, all the mayors and I, but this is a specific comment about Biloxi. I think that that the city over the last several years have done a really, really good job of understanding that in order to communicate with its citizens, they have to do it in different ways. You know, they may do some through the mail, they may do some through their website, they may do some through social media, through their video updates. Mm-hmm. The mayor is active. His team is very active. But I think as a general rule, they do a really good job of communicating. And so this Discover Biloxi would just be one more thing in their arsenal to be able to talk to the citizens of Biloxi about what's happening.
Yeah, and it's really more of a tourist and newcomers magazine, but they haven't had a magazine like this for Biloxi for at least 15 years, I think, if you look back. They had one, they let it slip, and there's, sometimes you stop it and then you forget about it. And so we mentioned it to them, and they love the idea. They saw what we did for Ocean Springs and what we did for Hancock County and Pascagoula and said, we want one of those too. So that's how it started. And, we're glad we're working with them. And Fofo is great to work with. Cecilia's fantastic. We're working with the Back Bay Chamber of Commerce, Biloxi Bay Chamber of Commerce. So they're all great. Yeah,
Cecilia, I enjoy when she's on the show. She's done a good job. Vincent Creel, when he was there, he put a lot of things in place, and they've done a good job of kind of taking that and moving on with it. And as you pointed out, adding new stuff. And her sister Cynthia is a regular guest from the Ocean Springs Chamber. Ocean Springs, man. Ocean Springs has got it going on right now, don't they?
It's a true sense of place over there. Blowing, going. You drive there. It's different every time you go there. There's another new building going up. There's a new restaurant. There's more retail coming there. They've got a good vibe over there, I guess. People just love it there, and people want to retire in that community now, which is pretty cool too. Which is a good drive for the community.
And my son, as you know, is a real estate lawyer, and my hunting son, Jake Carter, has Jay Carter and Associates Real Estate. As we regularly discuss the cost of real estate and how much it has gone up in places like Ocean Springs. But that's really true all across the coast. I mean, really, I had Tish Williams from Hancock County Chamber on last week, and she's terrific leader. But man, you look at what's happening in Bay St. Louis. You look over at Waveland and how it's exploding. They've got a new Marriott branded hotel in Waveland that's going to be really important to Stennis. And then you look up at Diamond Head, what's happening, and goodness gracious, man! I mean, every city, every county's got something going on that's exciting.
Hugh Keating spoke to a Republican luncheon about his announcing, to be run for mayor of Gulfport, which I think he'll be a great mayor. And he talked about home builders coming into here. They're talking about 5,000 to 10,000 more homes in the next, decade.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That's huge. You figure, 2.5, 3 people per house. You're talking 30, 40,000 more people on the coast. Just in the region.
Well, we need that because there's been a bit of a population, stagnation that has occurred. We lost some people after Hurricane Katrina. We've never really fully recovered. Mississippi has a story very similar to that. But when your economic engines, you need them to explode. You need this to happen. And Hugh Keating, incidentally, I don't endorse and I don't get involved in politics. In other words, I won't have this candidate on and next week have another candidate that's running against that person, because I learned as a publisher, as you well know, you start going down that road as a one-man radio show, we'll have nothing but political conversations for the rest of our time here. But just a side note about Houston, about Houston. I work with a guy named Houston who's terrific, incidentally. But about Hugh, I've known him in the community forever. Of course, he's close with people like Terry Green and Rick Carter, and he's always had a really important leadership role. He's played in the gaming community.
Tourism.
He's just a terrific, tourism. I mean, he's been a long time lawyer for Coastal Mississippi Tourism. But he's just a good dude, man. I mean, he's a guy that I've always had tremendous respect for. I trust him, and if he gets elected, and I think he probably will, but we'll let that play out. If he gets elected, he'll be another in a long line of mayors for the city of Gulfport that didn't need that job. They don't look at it as a promotion. I think about Billy, and I think about of course George Schloegel and his work, and Brent War. Even you don't. All of those guys didn't need. They didn't view becoming mayor as a promotion.
I think they want to say, this city, this coast has been really good to me and my family. I think I'm going to spend my last 4 to 8 years giving back a little legacy. So I asked you, I said, are you crazy? Why would you want to be mayor? Because Hugh helped Mary and I incorporate 30 years ago. He's done our legal work for 30 years. He's a great guy. And I consider him a very good friend. And I just think he'd be an outstanding mayor. As you said, he's got a really good balance of tourism. He's been a city of Gulfport, I think, outside legal counsel. He's worked all over the state on big legal events for the state. So he's good. He's really good.
Well, I think what happens when you do public service in the way that he's done it for so long, you feel almost an obligation. I mean, you also understand that it's an honor. It's an honor to be able to serve people. In some respects, maybe he thinks, and I'm just saying this for him, but maybe he thinks it's his turn, that he's got to step up. I don't mean his turn that he deserves it. I mean his turn to get back to the community. And that's, I mean, if I had him on today and we were to talk about it, I'm sure that's the way he would talk about it. That, and again, in a long line of Gulfport mayors, he's made the decision that he's going to give back. Then did all those years of institutional knowledge and relationship building, and really seeing Gulfport continue to evolve and to become, sort of an important gem for the Mississippi Gulf Coast. He's in a good position to be able to do that.
Yeah, and he wants to see Gulfport look prettier. Work on beautification, work on maybe grants, facade grants, stuff like that. So he's got some good ideas. Just a matter of where do you get the money at? It all takes money.
Well, look, I remember after Hurricane Katrina when we had the charrettes. just kind of re-envisioning each of the cities. And it's really interesting now to look back at how many cities adopted so many of the ideas that came out. Like a marina at Bay St. Louis, people said, there's never going to be a marina at Bay St. Louis, and look what ended up happening there. But I remember Andres Duany, the famed architect and planner, the father of new urbanism, world-renowned, who led that effort. He was driving down 49, and all he saw was destruction. But he said, you got to get your head above the destruction. You have to see for yourself this incredible gem, this diamond in the rough that is Gulfport. This is the welcome mat for a lot of people who are coming to coastal Mississippi. What a opportunity this is to do something special here. And, they did the largest facade program in the history of cities after Katrina, redoing the facades of downtown. Now you see life coming back to downtown and mixed use, and of course the aquarium and the outgrowth that comes from that. And we'll actually pick it up right there because you're on the board for the aquarium. It's good to get your perspective about that. We'll continue with more with Mike Sunderman from, him from South Mississippi Living, but he's the president and publisher of M2 Media. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. We have my friend Michael Sunderman, who is the president and publisher of M2 Media, but they publish a bunch of different publications. South Mississippi Living magazine really well. The Jackpot magazine, you probably run into that along the way, but there are others as well. But Michael, as we were chatting during the break, is in a position where we could kind of go down just about any road, because he and I on a daily basis are talking about all aspects of coastal Mississippi. It's just kind of part of our worlds, and that's why I enjoy visiting with him. We were talking about Gulfport, though, this gem that famed architect and planner Andres Duany saw as he went down Highway 49, entering Highway 90, even after Katrina, with all the destruction, seeing how incredibly position we were. And you've watched as Joe's Park has kind of found its place, and now you've got the aquarium, and the downtown's beginning to thrive. I had Robert St. John on recently, and we talked about his downtowner concept that he's going to be bringing to the Triplet Day location. And man, listen, he knows breakfast and he knows lunch, and it's going to be special. And
can't wait.
That's what you want to see, man, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the aquarium's, doing well despite the reports sometimes. Our attendance is up again this year, and we're having a really huge Christmas show. Thank you to our friends at Coca-Cola for sponsoring thing, but it's going to be a projection show, and it's a 3D mapping of some type. I don't know what exactly it is, but they really animated movies up on the scales of the building, and the scales will open up and close, and the penguins will come out and talk, and it's really incredible. So that will air all during the month of December, and we're expecting 25 to 30,000 guests for those shows across the street from Harbor Lights, which is perfect, and they can use that beautiful new bridge to come see us both.
And the strategic location of parking, and just kind of all fits together. I mean, it really does.
Good plan.
I think the aquarium has done a really good job. First of all, just from a governance point of view, and you and I have chatted about this before, but bringing in a board that's very successful business people who is actively engaged in tactically and strategically helping think through all aspects of the aquarium and providing support. But the other is just simply making sure that they're listening and making adjustments and bringing new and exciting aspects to the aquarium, so that when you go back the next time, there's something new to experience. You can't be static, and you've done a really good job with that.
Yeah, we did Changing Tides last year. We brought in about 15 or 20 new attractions, all enclosed in an air conditioning building. Kids love that. It's what's that's done is, like, when you look at your exit interviews, and sometimes we had some negative exit interviews, like, hey, not to do, or I was in and out of there in an hour. Now our exit interviews have skyrocketed up to the positive, where they're almost about 90% positive, 95% positive now, all saying it's fantastic. So that's why we've raised another $7.2 or $7.5 million towards the penguin exhibit. We hope to get that breaking ground in 2025. We've got a dozen African penguins that need a house. So Ricky, if you'll stroke that check for another $1.5 million, we got this covered.
Well, I'll have to give it some consideration. But,
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that penguins, listen, I remember penguins was sort of part of the kickoff when it kicked off.
Yep.
But there's something about penguins, which are not indigenous to this area, but that has been a nice drawing card, hasn't it?
It has. And we bring them out as often as we can. You listen, we on the board, we kind of on the marketing side, but the animal care people really try to keep us in check. Because you can only do so much for those animals. They don't do well under stress. So you can only bring those animals out to the public so often or only for so long. We bring them on TV for 15, 20 minutes. That's all they can take in a day. But when you bring them out, the kids light up. And they'll be out there for the Christmas show. Santa Claus will be there for the Christmas show. It's going to be fantastic.
Well, people don't. You just point that you just made about the care people. I've had various representatives of veterinarian staff on the show, and man, they take their work very seriously, both at the aquarium and then their off-site facility where they really are very aware of what it takes to keep these animals alive and healthy and I guess happy, and to this extent that's part of the deal. But
they care for damaged turtles and such. We do it at Mystic Aquarium. Moby does it at his facility on Town Road, and it's great to see these animals rescued and given a second chance.
It is so interesting. It is so interesting. So let's shift gears a little bit. The gaming industry, we saw a lot of money going into the market as a result of COVID, and we've talked about that money sort of it's going to cycle out, which eventually it did. But we are lucky in that the casinos are incredibly smart with their marketing. They're very strategic. They do a lot of targeted marketing. Of course, the Beau Rivage is leading the way with its charter jet service, but Harrah's is doing some of that as well. It's an industry that we're lucky to have them. When you take the money that Coastal Mississippi Tourism is spending, which really pales in comparison to what the casinos are spending.
Right.
When you add all of that together, even in a challenging environment, even with competitors all over the United States, we've really found a way to hold our own, even with all that, haven't we?
We have, and knock on wood, casinos are doing very well right now on the coast. I was up in Vicksburg last month for an event. They're doing well. Tunica's holding its own, but the coast casinos are really dynamic in the sense that they just keep finding a way to invite you back, and you keep coming back. And like you mentioned, the charter planes are really making an impact. You go to the airport on a weekend and you see those Sun Country planes full, and those are good players. They get identified. You don't get on that plane unless you're going to spend some money. So, no, they're happy. They're happy, and they've got some new restaurants down there. They've got some new developments going on there. So it's great. They keep kind of redeploying themselves.
Well, last time I talked to the folks at the Gulfport Biloxi International Airport Authority, is the official name for the Gulfport Airport. They said that the charter service was more than 25% of their total volume now. You think about it, that was actually important after COVID when they picked that back up again. When you think about military travel and business travel and then tourism travel and then the charter piece of that and just, the general public, involvement as well. It's a very diversified airport, but boy, the charter service has been incredibly important on so many different levels. It helps keep the airport viable, helps it be successful. It brings in all these people. When people come here from Minneapolis or wherever they're coming from, the reality is they come back often because they like it. They love this environment. They love the beach. They love the views outside their casino hotel rooms. It's a special thing.
I think they've gone to at least 50 or 100 different cities to bring these planes in. So every time you do that, you're exposing the coast to a whole different market. And they go home and show everybody their pictures and what a great time they had and when the Southern hospitality. And they're going to come back and say, hey, if we're not going to fly back, we'll drive back with friends.
Yeah. And then you got the Beau that's celebrating a big birthday, a lot of like a year long
25th,
birthday celebration. It's pretty cool. They always find their way to create newness, so that they can invite people back, don't they?
They do, and they've got they're the number one in the state, so they have the number one marketing budget too to put their brand out there, and they're all good at it. They're very professional out there. They don't do anything that doesn't work for them.
Good leadership, man. That's what it takes.
Yep, absolutely.
And we talked about this before. If you go across all the casinos, the leadership has been phenomenal. I mentioned I had Tish on. I know you work closely with Tish from the Hancock County Chamber, but during our conversation, we got into a discussion about John Ferrucci and the unbelievable contributions that he has made, not just to Hancock County, because that's where they see it. But she was telling me the story about John telling the board and Tish that you can't have all these resources and not be engaged in the community and not find ways to do it on so many different dimensions. And man, has he followed through on that observation. You and I have talked about John before, but man, we're so lucky to have gotten him from up in the Northeast to join coast of Mississippi in the early days of casino gaming, keep him here, have him go over, develop Silver Slipper, and then have bigger responsibilities for his corporation. He may retire in the spring, but I'm sure he'll be involved in many different ways.
Yeah, and listen, he's looking forward to retirement, but I think he's going to miss it. He's such a customer service guy. Food and beverage guy. He wants you to walk into his casino and just say, "Hey, John, how are you?" He's gonna call you by name. He knows his customers by name, and hey, come on, let's go have a cocktail. Let me buy you dinner. He's that kind of beautiful, and I mean it nicely, that old school casino guy that understood what that one-on-one contact means to repeat business.
Yeah, what I said to Tish on the show was, John is the kind of guy who can make you feel like you're the only best friend he has.
Yeah.
Think about how special that is.
Yeah.
But he has that incredible ability to do that. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Michael Sunderman. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. Appreciate you joining us as we, all kind of recovering from the Thanksgiving week. Our weekend, we usually starts on Thursday and goes through. For some people, it's going through today. They're driving back from wherever they went today. They're in their cars and enjoying my conversation with my friend Michael Sunderman from M2 Media, publishers of, among other publications, South Mississippi Living and Jackpot Magazine and Mississippi Gaming News and other publications. Well, hey, Michael, I heard recently that you guys got another award and this time from XXV. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a Viewer's Choice Awards. We were named #1 regional publication, which is very nice. So we went there. They had a nice banquet, got a nice award, and it's always nice. We don't, back when you were publishing, we don't really do it for the awards, but sometimes they just fall on you. So you accept them. It's nice, but we don't ever go into a business saying, now, how are we going to win awards here? So that's just not the way we do it. We just say if we put out a good magazine, there's a chance that we might get noticed, and that's all we do here. We try to put out the best magazines we can, and then let those magazines sell themselves.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I look back on my career and I think about Sun Herald's Pulitzer after Hurricane Katrina. You weren't doing it to earn a Pulitzer, but to get recognized by the industry for the work you do in a case like that. And then an Edward R. Murrow Award, a couple of Peabody Awards at my former company, and a partnership that I engineered between us and WVUE, which is, at the time it was owned by Tom Benson, but now it's part of Gray Media. It's part of the same company that owns WLOX. But, the media, you and I chat about this from time to time, but it's the Wild West in the media world since the digital tsunami took over and mainstream can no longer control the message. The world that we're in, some people lament about it. I don't. I like the notion of free press and letting it kind of let us live in the Wild West so we can see all points of view. It was so troubling when Elon Musk bought X and we discovered that, in fact, they were diminishing conservative points of view. They did conceal the Hunter laptop story and things like that. That's not good. But, you've had responsibility over newspapers before, as I have. And you know that there are always conversations that happen inside conference rooms about this news and that news and whether we should do that or this. There's always been a bit of control. That's the reality. We're not there anymore, though.
You mentioned like endorsements and politicians. That, some editors are very leery about talking bad about any city or town or leader, and it's a tough business because you've got to skate that fine line of putting out accurate news with ideally no bias, and that's very being naive because there's bias in everything we do in the media. And you can tell recently, if you look at CNN, MSNBC, their ratings have just spiraled downward because I think people finally caught on to the fact that you've been telling me BS for 4 years now, and now you're telling me, oh, don't worry about it, it's okay, we'll be okay, democracy's going to be okay, and you told me the world's ending. So they have created, daily newspapers for the most part have not done well. Like you said, the digital tsunami kind of, getting the news out that quickly and that accurately and pinpointing who your target market is, that hurt everybody in that field. So, you couldn't just, do the big shotgun effect and spray out there and try to catch somebody.
Well, you had, just for people who have not heard us talk before, Michael at one point worked with the Mars family, and he had responsibilities really across the nation for newspapers, so he knows this world really well. And later in my career, I had similar responsibilities. So we understand how it works. But the truth is, when you think about SuperTalk Mississippi News and Steve Davenport sort of not, he's had opportunities to sell, I'm sure, many times. But he thinks that the globalization, the centralization of radio stations is really not good for places like Mississippi. So he's doubled down on local in Mississippi. And then you have people like George Soros coming in and buying, 40+% stakes in some of the biggest radio companies in America. That ain't good to see, buddy. I don't like that. Of course, Gray owns WLOX now, and they'll make the best of it. Sun Herald's still owned by McClatchy, but McClatchy's controlled by venture capital funds. And, Mars still, WXXV still controlled by local, not local ownership, but a private owner. Yep. Those are few and far between these days, aren't they?
Yeah. And we were talking, I think, on maybe a Facebook chat, we were talking about when you and I led companies like that, we were pretty autonomous. They didn't get in our way. They let us run the companies. But some companies keep a thumb on their managers, and you got to do do things their way. Like, going back to the old days of Gannett newspapers, we used to call their publishers Gannettoids because they had no leeway. They had a policy book and they had to follow it. And it's sad because every market needs to react to the local market. They can't have a rule book that says this is our policy in California, so therefore it works in Mississippi. It just cannot do that.
No, listen, I can honestly say, and that was one of the great things of being part of Knight Ridder. Is Knight Ridder, when Knight Ridder named you publisher of their market, they said, you have financial goals to meet, but the editorial voice of that paper is 100% up to you. In fact, Tony Ritter, when he told me I had traveled to San Jose and we were sitting together talking about me becoming publisher of the Sun Herald, and he said the one thing he misses the most since he left from being a publisher to leading Knight Ridder was the editorial voice. And he said, man, I just really miss that. It's a real opportunity to be able to make a difference in a community. And he said, this is what he said to me. He said, look, never find yourself in a position. The publisher owns the editorial position of that newspaper. So do not ever find yourself in a position where you have to disown an editorial. If you ever do find yourself in that position, then you took your eye off the ball. You got to own it. Yeah. But that was it. That's the advice that he gave. And never once in my entire tenure with Knight Ridder, even as I had regional responsibilities for that company, never once was I ever told a position to take. Those days are over, though, for those national companies.
Exactly. I watched something on Morning Joe the other day, and they had to almost apologize. And that came from the lawyer's office. That wasn't heartfelt at all. The View did something like that the other day too. Just wasn't heartfelt at all.
Well, what's happened? They're getting spun off, and we don't know how that's going to play out. Again, as you pointed out, many of the mainstream media numbers have gone to hell in a handbasket. You mentioned CNN and MSNBC, but if you go to X right now, you have this group of people who are leaving X to go to Blue Sky. And Blue Sky, I think, is misreading the tea leaves on that, incidentally. They're having to ramp up rapidly to deal with the people that have switched over. But it's just a bump. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. You're going to see the same thing you saw with Threads, which is all the actions happening at X. That's where it's going to happen. But what's interesting, Mike, if you look at the most recent analysis of conservatives and liberals, I think 48% of the people who are on X are liberal, 47% are conservative, and so you have good balance there. And it can be the Wild West, but I'd rather sort through the Wild West than have someone tell me what I should see. If you're leaning towards CNN, for example, to tell you whether Trump is going to be okay for the democracy, you're tuning into the wrong organization. Same thing with MSNBC, and I could go on from there. But if you're a conservative in America, and you're trying to get some kind of balance from most of the mainstream media in this world, because most of the people who have been trained for those organizations, for most journalistic organizations in America, this. They came from liberal institutions, and they have a liberal point of view. And it's a sad state of affairs. We need balance in America.
We do, and it's getting tougher and tougher with corporate ownership, and to find a news source that's reliable, that tells like it is getting tougher and tougher. Whereas, listen, I tell my wife, I don't put anything hardly political on Facebook. I haven't done that for 4 or 5 years. Someone threatened to pull their advertising one time because I said something they didn't agree with. And I said, Mary, it's just not worth it. No one wants to hear my opinion anyway, and you're not going to convince anyone to change their mind. So leave it off and just keep it happy and keep it all about the Gulf Coast.
Well, you and I had this conversation even when I was publisher of the Sun Herald, and you said the big difference between what I was doing and what you were doing is that the work that we were doing journalistically at times was going to piss half the people off, and some maybe more than that.
Yep.
And the work that you're doing is all about making us feel better.
Yep.
And it's there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, you still have had success from doing that. But I had an advertiser in New Orleans that pulled on a moment's notice $900,000 worth of advertising just because he didn't like a position we took.
Exactly.
That's a tough place to be in. There are very few businesses that have to deal with that.
And
when we come back on the
That's the call you don't make. You don't make that call to corporate office.
Oh, I don't like to make it, but then the beauty is they support you. But but still, it comes back to the bottom line. What are you going to do to adjust for the loss of that $900,000? It's tough. Hey, when we come back with my friend Michael Sunderman, we'll continue the conversation. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I have my friend Michael Sunderman with us. And listen, if you missed my conversation with Ashley Edwards, I think about it within the past week, you ought to go listen to it. He's a former journalist, and we actually broke it all down, the state of media today. And as a former publisher and as a former digital media CEO, I can't help but comment about it, because you know what? The average person is actually more engaged in this conversation than they ever were before, because they're beginning to see right in front of their eyes, depending on their philosophy about politics, they're seeing that their voices and other voices that could have influenced them have been suppressed. And we don't want that. And so in their mind, free speech is, I don't want to see stuff that I should be able to see suppressed by somebody who thinks that they're going to be able to steer me in another direction. That ain't good, is it, Michael?
No, was it they want to do like a bureau of misinformation? It's like, well, who's going to be the judge of that? Who's going to say what's true and what's false? And that's a no-win situation. I'm glad that thing failed quickly.
Even the president of NPR, that gets most of their money from the federal government, said that the truth too often gets in the way.
Yeah,
that it gets in the way of our ability, how did she say, to build communities and find consensus or something like that. I mean, if I'd have said that as a publisher, they would have run me out of town, man.
Yeah, I think the DOJ is going to take a lot of that budget away. And NPR, listen, I think it's great that you should have a national, TV, radio service, especially in case of emergencies, to get that word out.
Yeah,
but it should be balanced. They should have, hey, you have 50% this, 50% this, or 25 in the middle. You can't be just left wing all the way. So
You can't be. And if my Democrat friends, when I got a bunch of Democrat friends, they're listening to this and they say that you and I are off base even talking about this because they like it the way it was. And my conservative friends obviously are saying the whole thing is broken. And if they're honest,
I bet you and I have both voted for Democrats in the past too.
Of course.
Gene Taylor back in the day, you had some good Democratic leaders down here that were middle of the road that would talk to both sides. Listen, I don't like people too far right. I don't like people too far left. I like it, keep me in that middle lane where we can make decisions that benefit the bulk of the people.
Yeah, listen, for the purpose, and this is even true today, for the purpose of my publisherships, I never got involved in political campaigns, never contributed to political campaigns. I never said I was Democrat or Republican. Mm-hmm. The way I describe my position is center-right. That's where I am. Yeah. But my center-left friends, they agree with all the things that I agree with. They don't like abortion. They're for, the Second Amendment. They believe there's a role for government, especially in a state like Mississippi where there's a lot of poor folks. And, we agree almost. And look, I especially like it when I go to the Mississippi Delta and spend time there and talk to my friends there. A lot of conservatives there, but there are a lot of what we call Delta Democrats because they see most of their beliefs are actually quite conservative, but they see a place like the Mississippi Delta that has so many needs from healthcare to you name it. And you're not going to solve all those problems by having the government stay out of their business. It's just not going to work that way. So I'm center right. That's how I describe myself.
I'm probably the same place. Yeah.
And most people in America are there. That's what's so sad about these algorithms that force the far right and the far left end up, bringing us into some big debate with one another because the algorithms work better when they're causing us to fight with one another, and when we fight, there's more engagement, and then the social media companies make more money.
And while every voice should be heard, the crazy 5% on the right and 5% on the left should not dictate the conversation.
No,
the rules,
no. Hey, if ever that were true, it was true in this past presidential election.
Absolutely, yeah.
You finally saw a whole group of people that says, you know what? I don't like where it's going. We're going in a different direction. And it's going to be so interesting to see it unfold. I saw someone, I'm trying to remember, a news person the other day said, man, this is going to be a news-rich environment. Because, for the past 4 years, it's not always been news-rich. It's been a little bit boring. We are going to a new place now. I mean, it's going to be, we're going to like some of it. We're not going to like some of it. But, man, change has been voted on, and change is about to happen in big ways.
Yeah, and you see some of the left media even saying, you know what, we're going to have to give this guy a chance, or we're going to have to do some balanced reporting once in a while here. Otherwise, we'll never get our ratings back, and we're going to continue to bleed viewers. So it's good to see.
Some of them are not going to be able to get them back. The problem is they put their stake in the ground, buddy. Yep. They put their stake in the ground, and they can try to come across as being balanced now, but it's too late. They've metastasized their point of view, and people have.
And they pick some strange things to fight the fight with. Men in women's sports. That was one of their big things. I said, listen. I'm sure you were an athlete in high school. I was an athlete in high school. I was a decent runner, and I would beat any girl in the high school level. Yeah, but I couldn't beat every guy.
No. Hey, listen, woke is dead. Or it will die rapidly, and most Democrats want it to be that way as well. Hey, listen, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, Michael. This has been Michael Sunderman from M2 Media. Listen, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Ricky. See y'all.